Hey everybody, I want you to check out the audio from the 2017 Pinky Promise Conference. This one comes straight from Cornelius Lindsay, and he's talking about walking by faith, which is so key as we're entrepreneurs or we're writing books or we're walking by faith and whatever God has placed you. So go ahead and listen to the audio, and it starts now.
I want to be able to talk about great faith, talking about what it means to walk by faith. I have a book that I wrote entitled Learning How to Walk, and that book is about faith. I detail a good deal of my journey of faith in that book. Faith is probably one of the subjects that I love teaching on the most. My new book, When God's Hand is on You, that book is also very inclusive of faith, what faith looks like, how to live by it, and how to understand faith in terms of ministry. So if you feel like God has called you to aspire into ministry, then that book, When God's Hand is on You, will be perfect for you. Or if you just desire to learn how to walk by faith, then that's what the book, Learning How to Walk, is all about. And I detail it with our son. I wrote that book when Logan was being born. No, Logan's probably about 6 months when I started writing the book, I believe. And it was interesting because I was able to watch with my own eyes how Logan was beginning to mature. Because if you think about faith, we're going to look at Hebrews chapter 11. If you have your Bibles, take those out. If you're on your phones. If you're digital, then you're on your phone, whatever it may be. Hebrews chapter 11. But I was able to look out and see how our son was beginning to transition in his maturity. So as babies, you come out, they're not able to do anything. It's just they're babies. And in the spiritual world, we refer to that as a napios. As a child, I thought like a child. I spoke like a child. I reasoned as a child. But when I became an adult or when I became a huios, I put away childish things. Now, the napios, the child, you have to spoon feed. You have to get them what they need. They're not able to get it for themselves. I couldn't tell my 6-month-old son, get up and go to the bathroom, stop pooping on yourself. He's looking at me like, no, dirty diaper. He can't tell me, so he's like, wah, 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 change me. He's like, I'm hungry. So he's able to do sign language to tell my wife that he's hungry. He wants milk or he wants water or he wants all this kind of stuff. So he has to do this sign language. So with the napios, in that stage, at that infant stage, you can't expect too much out of people in that stage. Like I can't expect so much out of our son. I can't expect so much out of our daughter when she was in that napio stage. As they begin to grow, they get into this more of a teknon stage, more like a teenage stage. And when you're a teenager, it's a kind of awkward, very, very real awkward stage. Because as a teenager, you're growing the body of an adult, but you still want the kind of flexibility of being a child. You're not really sure which way you want to go. Like, it's like when you say, I really want to have a car, and you probably beg your parents saying, hey, I really want to get a car, I want to get a car, I want to get a car. And then you'll get a car, and you'll drive it all the way until the gas is about out of it. And then you'll go back to your parents, you're like, I'm out of gas. And they're like, well, you wanted a car, but putting gas in the car is a part of having a car. Or when the check oil engine light comes on, and your first car, you're like, the oil engine light is on. So you just ride it out until the whole thing just bursts in flames on the middle of the highway because you didn't assume that buying new tires for the car was going to be a part of actually having it. Again, you wanted the responsibility of an adult, but you still kind of wanted the foolishness and childishness of the child. And that teenage stage is very awkward. You're trying to find yourself. So although you are walking, you're not necessarily walking in that straight of a line. In fact, as our son was beginning to mature from that napio stage, kids, they're just lying down. They're not able to do anything, just wah, wah, wah. And all of a sudden, the kid is able to kind of sit up. They're holding up their head straight, and they're kind of able to sit up. And then all of a sudden, the kid starts crawling. Or some kids, like they're scoot with their butt. Or some kids, I've noticed, they roll. But whatever the child is doing, they're starting to pick up movement. They're starting to pick up momentum. And how all this relates to faith is that with our journey of faith, throughout our spiritual journey, as we continue to mature, we find ourselves in different stages. Where some of us who just come to the knowledge of the truth hear messages on faith, and we as those who are seasoned, we look at those people and we say, you should just do more. God is calling you to do more. But for them, they're like, there's not more I really know how to do, because I'm only able to kind of lay on my back right now. I'm not really able to sit up for myself. And then for some of us, we're like, okay, I'm able to have the faith to roll, because I'm too afraid right now to start walking. And it really rung clear to me when our son, when he started taking his first steps. And I mean, it took our kid so long. I think our kid was like this kid was like, 16 months old before he started walking. I don't know what happened with the kid. I thought something was wrong with Logan. I really did. It took so long to start. And you know how when you're a parent, or you're a new parent, you're looking at everybody else's kids, and you're like, why are these kids walking and doing all these things, and my kid is still, sitting down on his butt because he doesn't want anybody to take him. He doesn't want to get up and walk by himself. But in this spiritual journey, you start to see that when that child starts walking, you start to see this newness about him. Like, okay, the kid's going, and then now through exploration, when the kid starts walking, parents know it's time to start locking stuff up. You gotta lock up the counters, you gotta lock up the drawers, you gotta lock stuff up, because the kid, he just wants to explore. And that the same rings true in our faith journey, that as we continue to go through life, as we begin to mature, as we continue to mature, we start to pick up on how we begin to develop our faith. Now, Hebrews chapter 11 says something that is so cool. We know Hebrews 11 verse 1. I grew up in a Baptist church. So this is a song we used to sing. Faith is the substance of things held for, evidence of things not seen. Y'all didn't sing that song? That was a real song. I believe it was. I think it was an original. Nobody else heard that song. I'm the only one. Y'all heard the song, right? Thank you. Okay. Y'all can be like, I never heard that before. Y'all need to open up your hymnal books, okay? That may not be in a hymnal book, but it may be. But we know faith is the substance of things held forth, the evidence of things that are not seen. Because this is the great thing about faith. If you can see it, then you don't need to have faith for it. The reason why faith can become so difficult for people to understand is because you really have to believe it without seeing it. Blessed are those who have faith. Blessed are those who believe and have not yet seen. Blessed are those, empowered are those, because although they have not seen him, although they have not seen him with their own eyes, touched him with their own hands, they still believe. We in this world, we're physical beings. We touch. It's like we're about senses. We want to see it. We want to see it. Make sure that it's aesthetically good. In marriage, when looking for a spouse, whatever that is, we want to make sure the person looks good. They feel good. We're about senses. And then when it comes to faith, you're believing something that you have not seen yet. So Hebrews 11 verse 1, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction or the evidence of things not yet seen. It's the evidence of what I have not yet, gotten. It's almost like I have the receipt, but I have not seen the product yet. I believe and I know that I have it, but I haven't seen the product yet, but I still know that it's there. You know how when they'll give you something and they'll say, go pick up your prize. Now, the raffle or whatever it is that you have, that ticket, it is proof that what it is that you are hoping for is there. The issue is that you just have not laid eyes on it yet, but you still believe with everything that you can get to it. I'm going to prove to you that all of us in this room, we believe that we all have some sort of faith. We do. When you sat down in the chair, I'm watching some of you as you come in. Nobody checked the chair underneath it to make sure that it worked properly. Because when you sat down, you had some kind of faith, enough faith to believe that the chair you're sitting in would sustain you. It's faith. You believed, you had hope that the chair would be able to sustain you. Now, if something happened to the chair, then obviously your faith begins to weaken, because you're like, I don't know anymore. So now, for the next couple of chairs you get ready to sit in, you're going to... And we do that throughout life. We get in certain situations, and it doesn't turn out the way in which we hope for. We thought that when we were able to sit down, it collapsed. So now we find ourselves taking less steps. We find ourselves not sitting down anymore with confidence, because there were a couple of times when we stepped out in something, it felt like we collapsed, and it felt like, well, maybe God wasn't there with us. The first thing about about great faith, walking by faith, is that if it can be seen, then faith is not needed. The next thing is, you'll see obedience where you see faith. You'll see obedience where you see faith. You show me your faith, I'll show you your obedience. You show me your obedience, I'll show you your faith. Believe it or not, we live our lives based on what we believe. You live your life based on what you believe. The mouth can sing the lie, but your life will always tell the truth. Because how you live is indicative of your faith. It's going to show us what you really believe. If you believe that God is a healer, then that's where your hope is. That's how you live. If you believe that God is a restorer, if you believe that He is a redeemer, then that is how you live, because that is where your faith is. That's where it's rooted. That's where it's grounded. The next thing here, the fear of not knowing cannot be greater than the faith to firmly rely. I'll say that again. The fear of not knowing cannot be greater than the faith to firmly rely. Just because you do not know what's on the other side of it does not mean that you cannot still rely on God to get you to the other side of it. One thing I love, and I was just listening to while I was down with the men and Pastor Davey Blackburn. If you've never heard of this guy before, I would encourage you to listen to some of his sermons. He did an awesome job this morning. But he was talking about, yea, though, he was going through Psalm 23, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And the one thing that I love to extract from that particular verse out of Psalm 23 is this. He says, yea, though I walk through it. And the great thing about faith is that although it is a valley of a shadow of death, that I don't have to fear it because I know that He is with me to walk through it with me. I'm not living in that place. And that's what faith is about. Faith is knowing that although I'm in the midst of the storm, that I know the one who has the power and the peace to control it is just asleep on the boat. He's fine. I'm fine. Jesus tells these men, could you imagine these experienced fishermen on the boat? The storm begins to ravage the ship. It says the waves begin to beat against the boat. And then it says the water begins to go inside of the boat. It begins to fill the boat. And Jesus is asleep. Like, what's up with that? Jesus, like, you could take a nap any other time, but not during a storm. I mean, that didn't even make sense, right? Like, Jesus, why are you asleep? And then they go down and they wake up Jesus because they're like, look, it's a storm going on and you're asleep. Jesus gets up. He wakes up. He quiets the storm. And then He chastises them by saying, "O ye of little faith." Almost they're saying, like, why are you so concerned? What are you so concerned about? Oh, I know what it is. You are focused on the storm, not the one who is there to comfort you in the midst of it. And what happens is the enemy wants to put you in fear of what it looks like, not knowing that the one who is with you is able to change and rearrange and bring peace to any of the situation. And the life of faith requires for you to always keep a focal point on the one who is able to take you through the storm, not on the storm itself. The enemy wants you to focus on the storm because there is no faith in the storm. There's only fear in the storm. But the beautiful thing about the storm is that if you can focus on the one who can take you out of the storm, the beautiful thing about it is once the storm is over, it always comes a beautiful rainbow. We still need the rain that comes from the storm. If we lost the rain, then we would cease from existence. We still need the rain. The rain provides us with fertile soil. It provides us with rich nutrients and rich plants. It provides us with all the things that we really need. We need the nutrients. We need the rain from the storm. But if we take out the storm altogether, Jesus, we no longer want the storm, then we don't get the rain. But there's beauty in that. There's beauty in it. And the life of faith says, this is what I know God has called me to. And because I know what He's called me to, what I know He's called me to do, I know I can boldly go there because I know the one who walks with me. The next point here I want to make is, the result of great faith always exceeds man's expectations and limitations. Let me say this to you. Whatever you believe that God has called you to, whatever you believe He's called you to do, and I'm continuing to reference this because, I've been reading and writing about when God's hand is on you. It's all fresh on my mind. So I'm keeping referencing back to this. But whatever he's called you to do, wherever he wants you to do, knowing that his hand is on you, it's on the other side of where faith can take you. And what slows most of us down, and what slows a lot of us down when it comes to the life of faith and living a life of faith, is one thing that you would probably expect to just maybe not even expect for this to be a big issue, but the one thing that really slows a lot of us down is comfort. Comfort has slowed more people down, especially in the body of Christ, than pretty much anything else. It's one of the things that we don't talk about too much. The reason why there are more miracles that takes place in places like Africa and Indonesia and China, in countries where the Christian population is less than half of the population, the reason why they have greater miracles is because their faith is stretched. Our comfort here in America, come on, this is our faith. We're in a beautiful ballroom in Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, come on, there's a pastor I love listening to, and he told a story about, he said a guy traveled in from Africa, and he came over to America to preach, and the pastor got up to introduce him, and the pastor told the congregants first. He said, "Listen, everybody, I want to thank you so much for coming here. I want to thank you so much for being here. This is an awesome speaker. He's going to speak a word to you. It's going to be amazing." Then he went down and he introduced a speaker, and then the African pastor got up there. He got up to the podium. He grabbed the microphone, and he said, "Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for getting in your warm cars, leaving your warm homes, to come and sit down in a warm church, and you sit down on your comfortable pews. Thank you so much for being here." And then he said something else that, how you take this is, I didn't say it, he did. He said, "Oh, you make me sick." And the reason why he said that is, and he's trying to make a point. He said to them, there are some people who have to walk for miles to come to church. And he said, it was some of you who just showed up here and you still complained about having to come. But you don't recognize the comfort that you had in getting to that place. Even the things that we think are uncomfortable for us are still comfortable for most people. People would die for the type of comfort that we have, the type of comfort that we enjoy. And comfort has slowed down many of us. And another big issue that slows down most people from living a life of faith is that they don't really recognize the purpose behind why they live it. Most times we assume that our life of faith is all about us, and it's not. In actuality, if I can burst your bubble for just a second, it is less about you than what you may even imagine. My wife and I would like to tell people this all the time. There is somebody on the other side of your obedience. There are nations on the other side of your obedience. I'm going to share this story with you guys. My wife and I, we did this test run, did an international tour this year. I was sitting in my office. God spoke to me as I sat there. He said, "I want you to go to Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and London." Called my wife into the office. I said, "Babe," "we're going to go." And she said, "Where are we going?" I said, "We're going to go to Nigeria, Kenya." She said, "Babe, we're not going to Nigeria and Kenya. Nobody is going to know us in Nigeria and Kenya." I said, "Well, we're going to go." And she's like, "Okay, babe," because she knows me. She's like, now we're already fresh into the marriage. She knows. We've already taken leaps of faith. After we got married, we moved to a totally different state. Hey, I didn't have a job. I was like, look, God told me to do this. I'm walking by faith. And it was tough. It was hard. But my wife was like, "Okay, we're going to go. We're going to go to Africa, and we're going to do all these things." So we ended up buying the plane tickets, and we didn't have a place to preach. Like, on the other side of it, people on social media would probably be like, "Man, y'all had all this stuff together." At home, we were like, we don't know what we're going to do. We didn't have a hotel. And then people actually thought that people paid for it for us. My wife and I were selling things that we had so that we can pay for the flights. Because that was just the faith that we had, that you know what, God is going to meet us there. So we showed up. We showed up in Nigeria. That was our first tour. Showed up in Nigeria. This church hosted us. They were so awesome. We expected nothing from anybody. In fact, when we actually found a host in Nigeria, and we told her, we said, find a building that probably can seat, about 150, 200 people max. Because I told her, I said, when I get there, I just don't want to be embarrassed. And she was like, okay, cool. We'll do that. Ended up finding this 5,000 seat sanctuary, and I'm like, man, we're about to be so embarrassed. It's going to be crazy. We land there in Nigeria. Mind you, land there in Nigeria. We don't know anybody there. Land there. This church hosts us. We get to the venue. Place is packed. They got tents outside. People have shown up, and we're just like, man, what has happened here? And then the blessed thing about it was not us going, but it was about the message that I received when we got back. The church we went and we preached at, the whole tour was about revival. It was about just reviving the hearts of people back to the Lord Jesus Christ. And the church reached out, and the church said, you know what? You may not know this, but before you came, we were struggling just to get people to really understand that we got to be on fire for the Lord, reviving their hearts. Now the church brings in more people than what it's been doing now in years. Isn't that amazing? But it's about being able to go to the place where God tells you to so you can reach the people that you're supposed to reach. Then we got to Kenya. Same thing happened. I mean, we're looking and we're like, where are all these people coming from? You get to South Africa, same thing. We get to London, same thing. We're like, where are you people coming from? But while we're there, we're meeting people from Belgium, from Scotland, people who come up to us and they say, you know what? I can't be on video. I can't be on camera. The reason being is because I'm actually running from my family right now. All my family is Muslim. And I got converted by watching one of your YouTube videos. And they say, my family thinks that I'm here, searching for a university. They think I'm here trying to go to college. And I came here, and I came here because I just wanted to come to the conference. We had one girl who showed up. She said, yeah, I came here by faith. Like, legit by faith. Some of you came by faith, but you still had a hotel room. I looked at her and I said, where are you staying? She said, I don't know. Like, for real, you have no idea where you're staying. No, I don't know where I'm staying. Well, how are you getting around? Where are you going to eat? I don't know. And then by the end of the meeting, she comes back up to us, and she says, look, here's one of my friends. I just met her. I met her here at the conference. And then I was like, okay, no, it was the next day. Sorry. It was the next day she comes to us. She says, yeah, I'm here. This is one of my friends. I said, so where did you stay? And she's like, well, the friend that I just met, she graciously told me, hey, why don't you come stay at my house? And I said, well, how did you eat? Oh, she paid for all of my food. I said, how are you getting back home? You believe it or not, she's actually paying for me to get back home. But the life of great faith means that I am taking a step into an unfamiliar territory. I'm taking a step into an unfamiliar place, and I'm believing God that His grace will meet me when I get there. So my wife and I were crazy enough to say, okay, God, if you'll meet us there, next year we'll do 10 countries. And then here's the crazy thing. Before we went anywhere, people would say, you shouldn't go there. There are terrorists, Boko Haram. Oh my goodness, are you going to London? When we were there, and when we were in London, they had the attack. The van, they ran over people on the London Bridge, and they went into one of the marketplaces and shot up people. It was a knife attack or something. It was really crazy. And people were texting us. And they were like, oh, my God, I hope you're okay. You need to get home soon. And my wife and I, we were sitting there. We were actually at a restaurant when all this stuff was happening. And our hearts were so grieved because we thought, people want us to leave these people who have to live here. And our heart was so broken for these people because we knew we were going back home to a place where this could very easily happen to us. But then we thought, man, where are the other people? Where are the other martyrs? Where are the other believers, the other warriors? That God is calling you out from your comfort zone, away from your university, away from your campus, away from your office, away from your hospital. He's calling you and He's saying, I want you to go. I sat down with preachers. I'll say this because I know my time is winding down. I sat down with a group of preachers, and they were actually having a debate about, this was when the Syrian refugee thing was going on. They're having a debate about, on one side they were saying, they're trying to go with biblical insight as to why we should allow Syrian refugees, because that'd be the Christian thing to do. On the other side, why we should not allow Christian refugees because God gave us wisdom. That was the whole argument about. I'm sitting next to this other guy. And this older guy, he finally raises his hand. He looks at me, and we're both just disinterested in the whole thing. I was playing Candy Crush through most of it anyway. He looks at me, and I was like, yeah, you say something. He raises his hand. He says, why don't we consider this? I believe the most Christian thing to do is stop arguing about it and just either you go or you send somebody else. Because here's the thing. The life of faith does not tell people to come to you. The life of faith says, God, I'm willing to answer the commission so that I can go to them. So here's the thing. If they won't let the refugees here, then where are the Christians who rise up and say, well, God, I'll go to them? We don't have that kind of faith anymore. That's just the kind of stuff we read about. I love Hebrews 11. I love reading about what these great men and women did. But where are those who are willing to chart a new course and say, you know what? The history, although it's been written, I'm ready to make some. Where are those Christians who are willing to go back to their universities, go back to their homes, and by faith turn the world upside down? Great faith doesn't settle down. Great faith says, by God, I'm going to do all things in accordance to thy holy will. The last thing I'm going to mention here, and I'm going to be done. Let me see. It says, our faith, his faith, which is crazy to the world, should be natural to us within our renewed mindset. In addition, obedience coupled with faith will yield great rewards, but there's always greater risk. Great faith has a sense of reckless abandonment, that which leaves behind what was for what has been seen. Hold on. Great faith has a sense of reckless abandonment, that which leaves behind what was for that which could be. Great faith requires great risk and sacrifice. Great faith, the willingness to walk by faith says, instead of saying, what will happen if I do? Great faith, the life of faith asks the question, but what happens if I don't? For those of you in here, and I say this every year to, I don't know if it's the same group of ladies or a different group of ladies. I say this every year. My wife and I, we meet so many women, they'll say, God has given me such a heart for broken women. And it seems like we'll meet them year after year, and we say, what are you doing with the burden he put on your heart? Are you sitting on that again? The life of great faith does not ask the question, what will happen when I get there? The life of great faith says, what happened if I don't? What could you imagine that? Think about the young girl who's in the position that you know that you've already endured everything that she's endured. And the life of great faith is calling you out and saying, I want you to go beyond that place of comfort and security and say, God, I'm willing to meet you wherever you want me to go. And I know that you're gonna take me through that valley along with you. And then the last question I have for you is what you're doing now, is it comfortable enough for you to stay there? Because if it is, then it could mean that when things are rattled in your life, and God has a great way of really getting our attention. Don't think that the firing from the job or something like that, we always try to give the devil, we give him so much credit that he really does not deserve. I mean, God can work all things to the betterment of our good, and we give him so much credit that he does not deserve. Here's the thing, ladies. Man, don't think that losing the job or losing whatever it is that you thought you lost was just the devil trying to get you out of it. It could be a breaking from what you needed to break so that you no longer be comfortable in that place, and you'll walk where he tells you to go. That's the beauty of walking by faith. That's all the time I have, ladies. All the time.